class itself really doesn't cover a lot of animation, but we'll want to cover enough to get going and do simple things like animate turrets, animate simple particle emitters, and basically get some parts moving around. This file is available. You can do this with me. This is going to be real quick. We're just going to use AutoKey for this, and we're going to take a look up here at the curve editor for animations in this. Okay, I want this ball to bounce, and I want it to keep bouncing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit AutoKey. That turns everything red. That means we're animating, so pay attention for that. You don't want to leave it on when you don't want to animate. And I'm going to go to keyframe 5 in this case, and I'm going to move the ball up, and you'll see that it's made a keyframe at 5, and because we had AutoKey on, it's also made a keyframe at 0, because we need at least 2 keyframes for something to move. And now if I slide this back and forth, you'll see the ball will move. At keyframe 10, what I'm going to do is hold down Shift and just copy keyframe 1, or 0, to 10, and it's just copied the keyframe, and so now my ball will go up and down. So you can copy and paste keyframes and drag them around all you want. I'm going to turn off AutoKey. Now we're not animating, no red here. And you'll see that my ball just bounces up and comes back down. Now I can change these, so if I think the ball is going to go up a little bit slower and it's going to come down, I can move the keyframes around just by left-clicking on them and moving them. Now I'm going to go over to my curve editor. You'll see the ball is selected. It's the animated piece. The curve editor allows us to control animation through these curves that we'll see. Now there's a couple tricky things about the curve editor. The first thing is trying to find your animated track in all of that mess. Now in this case it's the yellow highlighted ones here, but you can see that these could be all folded up. And there's a lot of stuff in here, and that's just with a scene with a plane and a ball in it. So what we want to do is go over here under, I have to remember where it is, Display, Filters, and we want to check Animated Tracks and make sure Visible Objects is on and say OK. That simplifies this down, so now we only have the animated track showing over here, which is usually what we want. Alright, now, a couple things about the curve editor. Here's our curve for our ball. You'll see as I drag my slider, these little blue bars here will move across. That's the keyframe it's on. So right here, you can see that keyframe is this keyframe right here. These curves are fairly easy to read. The steeper the slope, the faster the movement. And it's moving over time, and in this case, we're only moving on one axis, up and down, and you can see the other 2 axes are down here in this red and green line. So they don't get curves because we're not going back and forth or in and out. We're only animating on this one axis here. If I click on this top piece, you'll see we do have some little Bezier handles, and we can tweak our animation just by left-clicking and pulling out those Bezier handles, and we can make the animation faster going up or a steeper slope. But at the top, it's going to hang a little bit because we have a shorter slope at the top. You see where it kind of rounds out. So now my ball goes up and actually hangs for just a little bit. I'm going to make it hang for a little bit more. And I'm going to move my keyframes here out a little bit, and you'll see them move in the curve editor. So now I have a longer animation. See how they're all tied together? Okay, at this point, what I'm going to do is continue the animation so my ball keeps bouncing, and that's called Parameter Curve Out of Range Types. It's this button right here. Move this down so you can see it. And what we want this to do is to keep cycling, or looping, sorry, not cycle, but loop. So I'm going to highlight this. You'll see these buttons are everything in this direction is that button, everything in this direction is this button. So they're actually both pressed down now, but we only need this button because we're only going in this direction since we started at frame 0. I'm going to say OK, and what I'm left with are all of these little bouncing bumps here, kind of virtual, where I didn't set keyframes. Max has done it for me, and you can see now that my ball will just keep bouncing forever. I'd hit the play button, which is right here, except on the video it's going to skip because it doesn't go at a fast enough frame rate. But you can see that it keeps bouncing. And on your machines at your place, that'll look a lot better. Okay, the last one we want to talk about is I'm going to undo that. I'm going to right-click here on each of these bottom keyframes where the ball hits the ground. And what I'm going to say is that coming into that keyframe, I want it to go straight to the keyframe, and that's this one. You'll see it now, it comes straight down, and going out of that keyframe, I want it to go straight out. See how you can read those? It's curved coming in and then straight out. And watch this area right here. See how it's got a little bit of a curve in it? Watch when I change it, and you'll see that now it comes straight out of that animation. So straight in, straight out. Okay? All right. So now we've got our ball bouncing. Very nice. And I think we're going to end the tutorial here because we'll cover the next step in the next tutorial.